The wind carried the scent of tilled earth and diesel as Jack Calloway leaned against his porch railing, nursing a chipped mug of black coffee. The sky was overcast, threatening rain, but he welcomed it. Crops had been thirstier than usual. Out here, miles from the nearest town, silence was a way of life. No phone towers. No traffic. Just dirt, corn, and solitude. That was how Jack liked it. Then the sky cracked. A thunderous boom split the clouds, followed by a streak of fire that tore across the heavens. Jack squinted. It wasn't lightning. It moved too low, too controlled, even as it spiraled violently. Moments later, a shockwave rattled the windows, and a distant column of black smoke climbed from the western edge of his field. Jack set the mug down. By the time he reached the crash site in his old farm truck, the fire had mostly died down, leaving a gouge in the earth stretching 50 feet through broken stalks. The twisted remains of something metallic hissed in the dirt. He approached with caution, boots crunching through scorched husks. Then he saw it. At first, he thought it was part of the wreckage, some armor or casing. But it moved. Groaned. The creature was massive, at least 9 feet tall even in its collapsed state. Its skin shimmered with dark scales, deep red and charcoal black, like obsidian laced with lava. Wings, shredded and scorched, twitched weakly at its back. One arm was mangled, the other clutched its side, where blue blood seeped through cracked plating. Jack's hand hovered near the knife on his belt. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't human. But it was breathing. Barely. He crouched beside it, not sure what compelled him. Maybe it was the ragged exhale. Maybe it was the way its eyes flickered open, reptilian, burning gold, filled with pain and defiance. Jack didn't flinch. "Easy," he muttered, not expecting comprehension. The creature snarled weakly, but couldn't lift its head. "Right," Jack said to himself. "You're not gonna make it out here." No logic justified what he did next. No voice of reason would have told a man to drag a 10-foot alien across a cornfield and into a barn. But Jack had spent a war watching men die for stupid reasons. Now, all he wanted was to keep something alive. It took over an hour. He rolled the creature onto a tarp, hooked it to the ATV, and dragged it slowly back to the barn. Inside, he cleared space in a hay stall, rolled it off, and grabbed his med kit. The wounds were serious. Gashes through what looked like armored hide, a dislocated wing joint, plasma burns along one side. Jack worked silently, cleaning and wrapping what he could. He poured antiseptic onto a burn. The creature hissed and convulsed. He backed off, letting it breathe. "I'm not here to finish you off, big guy. Just patching you up." He returned to the house and brought back a space heater, extra blankets, a 5-gallon water jug, and a bucket of eggs and bread. He placed it all within reach and stepped back. The alien remained still. Jack stayed nearby that night, sleeping lightly in a hay pile. Rain drummed the tin roof while the wind rattled the barn doors. Twice he woke to coughing, deep, guttural, wet sounds that didn't belong to any earth animal. By morning, the creature's breathing was steadier. When Jack approached, it stirred. One eye opened again, fixing on him. Jack nodded, squatting beside the bucket. "You hungry?" He cracked an egg into a bowl, scrambled it over a propane flame, and slid it toward the creature. It didn't move. Jack shrugged, took a bite himself, then left the bowl closer. It sniffed, then slowly reached out with trembling claws and took it. It devoured the food in seconds. "Figured," Jack muttered. He offered more water. It drank greedily, growling as the motion aggravated its ribs. "Easy now. You're lucky you crashed near a soft-hearted idiot." The creature looked at him, long and searching. Not with the fear Jack expected, nor anger. Something else. Curiosity, maybe? Confusion. Jack stood. "Rest. You'll need it." As he walked back to the house, he didn't know if what he did would come back to bite him. He only knew that something had fallen from the sky, bleeding and alone, and it wasn't in him to leave it there. Tomorrow, he figured, would bring questions. Maybe trouble. But today was simple. There was a stranger in his barn, and it needed help. The alien woke with a shuddering breath, talons scraping the barn floor as it tried to rise. Its body refused, and it collapsed again, eyes burning with frustration. Jack stood a few feet away, arms crossed, observing silently. No sudden movements. No fear in his posture. Just watchfulness, like someone sizing up a wild animal that hadn't decided whether to bite. "You're alive! That's something." The alien snarled weakly, wings twitching behind it. Jack didn't flinch. He pointed to the bowl of food again. Eggs. Bread. A chunk of cooked meat now added to the offering. The creature glanced at the meal, then at Jack, as if unsure if it was a trap. "I already saved your life. Poisoning you would be extra work." After a tense pause, the alien reached out, claws slow and deliberate, and snatched the meat. It chewed quickly, swallowing without pause. Jack placed another piece down, then water. The creature drank again, less desperately this time. "You got a name?" Jack asked, half to himself. The alien tilted its head but didn't respond. Jack tapped his own chest. "Jack!" He pointed to the alien. "You!" No answer. A guttural rumble escaped the creature's throat, a sound layered with gravel and something metallic, impossible to mimic. "Right. Let's make it simple. You look like a dragon. I'm calling you Ashur." The alien blinked slowly. It didn't object. Over the next few hours, Jack fed it in small intervals. Meat. Bread. Some canned beans. Ashur accepted everything, sometimes reluctantly, as if unsure whether this was nourishment or some sort of test. When Jack offered more antiseptic and moved toward the wound, Ashur tensed, baring fangs. "Calm down," Jack said, raising his hands. "Trying to help." Again. He worked carefully, never making sudden moves. The alien's eyes tracked every gesture, but it didn't lash out. Jack noted the tension in its posture, a trained soldier, wounded or not. There was discipline in how it moved. Even injured, it was calculating. "You're not from around here. Not just another species. You're military." Ashur grunted. It wasn't confirmation, but it wasn't denial either. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the barn. Jack brought a small whiteboard and marker from the house. He drew a circle and pointed. "Home?" Then pointed to the sky. "Where?" Ashur stared, then snatched the marker. Its claws were too large, but it managed to draw 3 intersecting arcs, a symbol Jack didn't recognize. Beneath it, a symbol resembling a flame. Jack squinted, then nodded. "You're not just hurt. You're lost." Ashur nodded once. Jack gestured to the food again. "Why did you eat it? If you thought I was a threat?" Ashur tapped its chest, then pointed at the food. Then at Jack. A strange gesture followed, 2 fingers raised then crossed over the chest. Jack didn't understand the meaning, but the seriousness in Ashur's expression was unmistakable. "Dead?" Jack guessed. "Oath?" Ashur nodded. The realization sank in. This wasn't just hunger. In Ashur's culture, accepting food might mean something more. Obligation. Respect. Maybe even submission. Jack exhaled through his nose. "Great. So I accidentally adopted an alien." Ashur's golden eyes narrowed. It reached toward the whiteboard again, and slowly, shakily, wrote something. "Why?" Jack read it aloud. "Why? Why what?" He pointed to himself, then to the barn, mimicking the act of dragging something heavy. Ashur repeated the gesture, then tapped the word again. Jack considered the question. There was no grand reason. No strategy. No payoff. "You were dying. I helped because that's what people should do." Ashur stared at him, as if the answer didn't compute. A few seconds passed before it began to write again, clumsy but deliberate. "Enemy." Jack shook his head. "I don't know who you are. You didn't shoot at me. You crashed, bleeding. That's all I needed to see." Ashur looked at him for a long time, expression unreadable. Then it placed a clawed hand over its chest, bowed its head once, and murmured something low and rough. It wasn't English, but the tone was unmistakable. Gratitude. Jack didn't respond right away. He didn't need to. Instead, he reached for another slice of bread, tore it in half, and handed the larger piece over. Asher accepted it without hesitation. The sound started as a distant hum, barely noticeable over the morning wind. Jack paused mid-step outside the barn, coffee steaming in one hand, eyes narrowing toward the horizon. The hum deepened, shifted into a vibrating growl, unnatural and rhythmic. He recognized it instantly, not from farming, but from his time in the war. Dropships. He set the mug down and looked toward the cornfields, where the crash site still smoldered faintly. Within seconds, the sky tore open. 3 massive ships descended in unison, matte black with glowing veins of cobalt running across their hulls. No markings Jack could read. No engines he could recognize. They didn't land so much as settle, soundless despite their size. When the ramp of the lead ship lowered, Jack was already standing between the barn and the landing site. 12 figures stepped out, each towering and armored, their silhouettes disturbingly similar to Asher's, though more refined, less injured, and clearly combat-ready. Their armor gleamed, polished bone and metal interwoven with iridescent plating. Spears, not guns, were slung across their backs, long and humming faintly. Their eyes glowed the same molten gold. The one in front stepped forward, scanning the area without hesitation. Jack didn't move. He didn't reach for the shotgun hidden behind the door. He just watched. A guttural command erupted from the leader. A language Jack couldn't parse, but it hit like thunder. From inside the barn, Asher responded, weakly, but with force. Moments later, the barn doors shifted. Asher emerged slowly, leaning against the frame, still battered but upright. The moment was electric. The soldiers snapped to attention. The leader dropped to one knee, weapon lowered. One by one, the others followed. A full bow of allegiance. Not to Jack. To Asher. Jack didn't speak, letting the scene unfold. The leader stood and began speaking rapidly to Asher, voice clipped and urgent. Asher responded more slowly, with pained growls and gestures. He pointed to Jack once, only once, but the reaction was immediate. The leader turned to face Jack, bowed his head briefly, then approached. Jack tensed, jaw locked. The alien extended a single hand, claws out but palm upward. Then, in heavily accented English, said, "Human. You gave Skyblood meat, fire, and time. You claim no banner. No tribe. Yet you have acted by the old code." Jack said nothing. "You saved our bloodkin. The costs must be answered. I didn't ask for payment." The alien tilted his head. "Refusal of debt does not erase the obligation." Asher growled something from behind, halting the conversation. The commander stepped back, gesturing sharply. 2 soldiers broke formation and produced a case, flat, wide, humming faintly with a pulse of inner light. They laid it at Jack's feet. "No," Jack said firmly. "You do not understand what has occurred," the leader said. "He is heir of the Skyblood Dominion. This ground is now sacred by code. You are bound." Jack pointed a finger at the fields. "This is farmland. I didn't save a prince. I saved someone bleeding in my dirt." Asher stepped forward now, posture straighter, voice stronger. "You break cycle. Enemy gives, no mercy. You gave life. Food. Honor." Jack folded his arms. "Then leave me out of whatever comes next. I don't need your war. I want peace. Quiet." The aliens murmured among themselves. The leader looked conflicted, like Jack's defiance didn't match anything in his cultural handbook. Finally, he asked, "You make no claim? No demand?" Jack thought a moment. "Fix the fence you tore up on landing. And don't send any more ships." Silence. Then, unexpectedly, the leader smiled, sharp and unsettling. "It will be done." They left the crate where it was, but didn't argue. Orders were barked, and a team of soldiers moved quickly, laying down drones and repair modules. In less than an hour, the scorched fence was rebuilt with metallic reinforcement Jack couldn't identify. Soil near the crash site was treated with some alien compound that neutralized radiation, leaving the area cleaner than before. Before boarding, Asher approached again, slower this time. He reached into his armor, pulled a single shard, translucent, pulsing faintly, and pressed it into Jack's hand. Not gift. Not tool. Marker, he said. If trouble comes, break it. Jack looked down at the crystal. You sure you're not just trying to drag me into your politics? Asher's expression turned almost amused. Already are. Without further words, the ships lifted. The sky closed behind them. Jack stood in the silence they left behind, holding a marker he never asked for, wondering what storm he'd just been made part of. The land went quiet again after the ships disappeared, but something had changed. Jack could feel it. The wind didn't sound the same. The silence wasn't the same kind of peaceful. It was expectant, like the ground was holding its breath. He went back to his routine, but the rhythm was off. Every now and then, he'd glance at the barn, half expecting to see Asher still leaning in the doorway. But it remained empty. Whatever happened next would not be distant. It would be personal. A week later, strangers arrived. They didn't come from the sky. No engines. No noise. Just 3 unmarked black vehicles crawling up the dirt road in a slow, deliberate line. Jack watched from the porch, arms folded, a knot tightening in his chest. The men who stepped out wore no uniforms, but their posture gave them away: military, intelligence, or something deeper. Clean-cut, deliberate, trained to appear harmless. That made them the most dangerous kind. They didn't ask for permission. One approached, calm, hands in view. Mr. Calloway. We'd like to talk. Jack didn't answer. The man took it as a yes. We picked up activity over your land. 3 unregistered objects entered and exited our atmosphere. Trajectory shows they landed here. Farm equipment does funny things in storms, Jack replied flatly. The agent gave a thin smile. We're not here to play games. I'm not playing. The man's tone hardened. This isn't just about you. Whatever came down wasn't just alien. It was military grade. That means it's a threat. Jack didn't move. Threat to who? Everyone. If you've seen anything, you're required to disclose it under Directive 17. Failure to cooperate is obstruction. Jack met his stare. I saw a meteor crash. That's all. The agent stepped closer. We have satellite footage. We saw figures. Life forms. Interaction. Jack's jaw tightened. You're trespassing. We can escalate this. You don't want us digging too deep. Jack nodded slowly, then turned his back and walked into the house. He didn't slam the door. He didn't yell. But he returned with something in his hand, the shard Asher had given him. He held it up where they could see. You think you're the biggest monster in the dark, Jack said. You're not. The lead agent's eyes narrowed. What is that? Jack didn't answer. He crushed it in his fist. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the wind shifted. A vibration rolled through the ground like a distant drumbeat. One of the black cars blinked off, lights dead, electronics fried. Radios crackled then died. The agents looked around, suddenly less certain. Jack walked past them. You want to keep pressing, you'd better bring something bigger than paperwork. Before they could recover, the sound came. Not loud, but unmistakable, a high-pitched keening in the upper atmosphere. It wasn't a ship. It was a warning. A signal. The agents left. That night, the stars shimmered differently. Jack stood in the field, hands in his pockets, staring at a sky no longer indifferent. It watched him back now. Somewhere out there, Asher's people had responded. Not with violence. Not with invasion. With presence. Silent, heavy, undeniable. In the days that followed, small changes crept in. The crops grew faster. Healthier. Places scorched during the crash now bloomed. Tools he hadn't repaired in months began working again, as if tweaked by unseen hands. At first, Jack blamed coincidence. But it wasn't. Then came the package. Left at the gate, no vehicle in sight. Inside was a small, dark stone etched with unfamiliar patterns, and a folded piece of parchment-like material. Not paper. Not synthetic. It bore a single phrase, in clean, stenciled English. Guarded by a cord. This land is not to be disturbed. No signature. No crest. Just the weight of the message. Jack placed the stone near the barn. The moment it touched the earth, it sank slightly, humming once, then went still. Birds avoided it. So did deer. Even his dog refused to go near. He didn't tell anyone. Not the neighbors. Not the town. Some things weren't for sharing. They were for keeping. Every so often, he would find out signs. A pattern in the dirt. A tool moved a few inches. The barn door slightly ajar when he knew he'd locked it. No harm came. No confrontation. But the feeling was always there. He wasn't alone anymore. Whatever Asher had started wasn't over. Jack hadn't joined a war. He'd changed a course. And now the farm was more than a home. It was a marker. A place with meaning to beings who didn't speak his language but understood something deeper: debt, loyalty, and lines that shouldn't be crossed. He didn't regret it. Not for a second. 3 months passed. Life returned to its rhythm, but the rhythm had shifted. Jack's farm thrived beyond logic. Crops yielded more than double their usual harvest. Machinery never broke down. Soil stayed rich even after heavy use. But none of that felt like coincidence anymore. It felt managed, curated even. Not by human hands, but by something watching, something careful. The government stayed away. No more agents came. No unmarked vehicles. No helicopters. It wasn't because they lost interest. They were afraid. Jack knew the type. They wouldn't back off unless someone much larger made it clear the boundary wasn't to be touched. Whatever warning he'd triggered with Asher's shard had drawn a permanent line in the dirt, one even world powers weren't willing to cross. Then, one evening, a new message arrived. It wasn't delivered by hand or vehicle. It simply appeared, resting on his kitchen table without a sound, without a trace. No burn marks, no broken locks. Just a thin, flexible sheet like dark glass, glowing faintly with soft green text in a language Jack couldn't read. Seconds later, the words shifted, translated mid-sentence, as if the object read his thoughts. The Accord recognizes your sovereignty. Your land is now encoded into the Treaty of Bound Spheres. He kept reading. Interference by any faction will be considered a breach of galactic code. You are granted Watcher status. Observation, not alliance. Action, only if chosen. He exhaled slowly. Watcher. A neutral, protected party. Not aligned. Not military. But not ignored. This was no longer a one-off encounter. He had stepped into something ancient, something layered in codes of conduct older than Earth's recorded history. And they had honored it. Not because of strength. Because of behavior. Because he had chosen compassion where logic might have said otherwise. The message faded. The sheet remained inert. He put it in a drawer, locked it away. He didn't need its glow filling the house. That night, dreams came. Vivid, not like memories, but more like messages. He saw cities floating in gas clouds, colossal beasts pulling ships through rings of ice, and stars being born in controlled supernovas. The dreams weren't nightmares. They were glimpses, impressions of something vaster than he'd imagined. Somewhere in that stream, Asher appeared again. Standing taller. Stronger. No longer wounded. Wearing a different kind of armor. A symbol across his chest. And a simple message spoken clearly. We remember. Jack woke with a jolt. The word echoed in his chest longer than in his ears. He didn't try to explain it away. He knew the difference between a dream and a visitation. Weeks later, something unusual happened. Not otherworldly, just human. A stranger arrived on foot. Backpack. Mud on boots. clearly not from around town. The man introduced himself as a drifter looking for work. Said he heard the farm was hiring. Jack hadn't posted anything. Hadn't spoken to anyone. He asked the man where he'd heard about the job. The drifter shrugged. Heard it in a diner 2 towns over. Somebody said this place had quiet hours, strong fields, and no interference. Jack studied him. He wasn't sure what he was looking for, signs of deception, maybe, or something unnatural. But there was none. The guy was just a man. Jack nodded. I've got fences to fix. You good with tools? The drifter grinned. I can learn. He started the next day. By the end of the month, 2 more people showed up. A single mother with a boy looking for a place to stay. She didn't know anything about farming, but she could cook, and the boy liked animals. Jack didn't turn them away. Then came an older veteran, burned out, eyes heavy, quiet. Said nothing about aliens. Just asked if he could work for shelter and time. One by one they stayed. The farm grew in ways Jack hadn't planned for. Not just crops or animals, community. People found their way to him without GPS or job ads. People who'd lost faith in systems. People looking for silence, but not isolation. Jack didn't ask questions. He gave them space, and in return, they gave him loyalty. The land remained untouched by outsiders. No drones. No flyovers. Even the internet seemed to bend around the property, buffering longer here, dropping signals without cause. It wasn't inconvenient, it was deliberate. A kind of enforced privacy, gifted from above. Jack stood on his porch one night, looking up. The stars blinked like they always did, but he could feel eyes behind them, aware, patient, watching not with threat but respect. He hadn't joined an alien empire. He hadn't become their tool. But he had proven something, to them, and maybe to Earth. Sometimes, the most powerful act wasn't conquest. It was decency. And in this corner of a vast, wild universe, a single human with a wounded soul and a strong back had set a standard. One the stars would not forget.